What if status conditions evolved your Pokemon? This is a concept that was suggested in my comments section by Jonathan on one of my recent videos, and I thought it sounded like an interesting idea. So today, we're going to take a look at what it could be like if statuses like Burn, Poison, or Freeze could actually give your Pokemon new evolutions. Speaking of Freeze, why don't we begin with a Pokemon who tends to get the cold shoulder, and that is Luvdisc. In a case of cruel irony, this Pokemon isn't loved at all by most people, despite being themed around love itself. And as you might be able to imagine, this kind of treatment tends to affect the Pokemon it is directed towards. Luvdisc's own heart has begun to grow colder as a result of this, and when it is frozen in battle and then levels up, this creates a perfect storm of conditions that causes Luvdisc to evolve into Coldazone, the cold-hearted Pokemon. After evolving from Luvdisc, Coldazone becomes part Ice type in addition to its Water typing, and it no longer has any interest in being friendly or kind to others. It's become as cold in its demeanor as it has in its typing, and as you might be able to tell, this is inspired by the term cold-hearted, and is actually a part of an even larger concept that I have come up with for Luvdisc. Since this Pokemon is in such desperate need of some special attention, I have come up with a concept where this Pokemon could actually get several evolutions that are all based around various heart-related terminology. So Coldazone, as I've said, is an Ice type based on the term cold-hearted, while Grievish and Oramore, who are other Luvdisc evolutions that I've made for past videos, are based on a Broken Heart and a Heart of Gold, respectively. I think something like this would be the exact kind of thing that Luvdisc could use to totally redeem its design and actually make it really cool. So between this and the evolution method, I think this design is actually really cool, no pun intended. Coldazone also has its own signature ability called Cold Shoulder, which raises both of its attack stats whenever it takes place in a single battle, but this comes at the cost of when it's in a double battle, its defenses are lowered instead, reflecting its cold demeanor and dislike of being around others. Finally, this is its shiny form, where it gains this really nice chilly purple color. The next status condition we are going to focus on is Sleep, and the Pokemon we are going to use to evolve it is Delcatty. Now, unlike in Luvdisc's situation, this evolution is a more enjoyable scenario for Delcatty because it is a Pokemon that is actually themed all around sleep. It evolves from Skitty with a Moonstone, and it even features a neck pillow in its design, so it honestly felt like a perfect match for this kind of evolution method. So, once you raise Delcatty up to level 30, and it is inflicted with the Sleep status condition, but survives that battle, it will evolve into Parestis, the beauty Pokemon. After evolving, this Pokemon gains the Psychic type in addition to the Normal type, which comes as a result of the sleep motif of this Pokemon. Parestis is an extremely high-class Pokemon, as it dedicates almost all of its time to pampering itself. It is truly the ultimate self-care Pokemon, as it prides itself on its beauty, and in particular, its extremely vibrant and sleek fur coat. In terms of design origins, this comes from this Pokemon being primarily based around a beauty sleep motif, which felt like a great add-on to the sleep-centric designs of Skitty and Delcatty. And speaking of which, upon evolving into Parestis, this Pokemon also gains a new signature ability called Beauty Sleep, which completely restores this Pokemon's HP whenever it is put to sleep in battle, and it will also wake up from that sleep quicker than normal as well. In its shiny form, it swaps out its vibrant purple for a really velvety, rich red color, befitting of its high-class, elegant nature. So these first two evolutions are pretty good examples of how a status evolution could work, but the cool thing is there's also way more that you can do with this idea too. For example, just because you might be frozen doesn't necessarily mean that you have to evolve into an ice type, and I am going to show you what I mean by that with our next evolution, and that is going to be for Kadabra. Kadabra normally evolves into Alakazam via trade, but when Kadabra reaches level 35 and is poisoned in battle, it will evolve into Hokascam, the con artist Pokemon. Unlike the evolutions that we've covered to this point, Hokascam doesn't simply gain the typing associated with the status condition that caused its evolution, because it is actually part dark type in addition to its psychic typing. This is because upon being poisoned, its mind was poisoned as it evolved, which took it from a normal psychic type that is based on a performer to an underhanded Pokemon that has now taken on the role of a scam artist. Also, this is the kind of evolution that I think shows how fun this concept could really be, because I think it shows how there are some really creative possibilities in terms of how these status evolutions could be interpreted, outside of the typical stuff that you would normally expect. In terms of lore, Hokascam always uses trickery to get what it wants, as it constantly uses its psychic abilities to con people and Pokemon for its own gain. This has also caused it to become a popular Pokemon with more unsavory groups of people, such as Team Rocket, who use the Pokemon to help further their schemes. Hokascam also has its own signature move called Coin Trick, which is an 80 base power move that damages the opponent and then restores Hokascam's own HP by 50% of the inflicted damage. Additionally, it also confuses the opponent upon making contact as well. If you hadn't noticed yet, Hokascam is also named after a magic word, Hocus Pocus, just like the rest of the Pokemon in this line. And while that did admittedly limit the name options a bit for this Pokemon, I think the name itself turned out pretty alright. Finally, its shiny form simply gains the more typical coloration of Abracadabra and Alakazam, while its base color scheme is meant to look a little more sinister and sickly, to reflect this Pokemon's darker intentions. Up next is another Pokemon from the Kanto region who has discovered a new evolution for itself through the affliction of status conditions, and that is Tangela. It's just been discovered that in addition to being able to evolve into Tangrowth, once Tangela reaches level 30 and then is burned in a battle for 5 or more turns, it will evolve into Tangela, the dead vine Pokemon. As a grass type who is especially susceptible to fire, the burn that Tangela endured has caused it to evolve into the grass ghost type Tangela. When Tangela take on burns like this, which are potentially life-threatening as a grass type, this evolution acts as a sort of defense mechanism, where the Pokemon evolves while at the same time succumbing to the burn in order to extinguish it, which is what results in this Pokemon's ghost typing. It actually ends up as a net positive for Tangela though, because not only does it gain a new typing, but it also gets stronger as a result of its evolution. It has the same base stat total as Tangrowth, but with redistributed stats including higher speed and special defense, but less HP and physical defense. Tangela also gains a new signature move upon evolving called Afterburn, which is a base 50 power ghost type move that will triple in power whenever Tangela is inflicted with a burn, which is a callback to its evolution method. Additionally, to speak on the background of the design a little bit, it was inspired not only by the idea of fire burning plants and how that could make for a ghost type, but Tangela and Tangrowth's designs are uniquely shaped to where they are basically just a couple of eyes poking out from a shroud of vines, which I thought was pretty similar to your classic sheet ghost, who is largely the same thing with just a couple of eyes poking out from a big white sheet. So the idea stemmed from the parallels between these two designs and kind of just blending them together, which I thought made for a pretty cool idea. And speaking of which, for its shiny form, it gets a more classic ghostly white coloration as an homage to this inspiration. Those are all of the evolutions I have for you today though, so be sure to let me know your favorites in the comments, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe as well so you don't miss the next one, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.